when I got the ball in my hands and I was able to run, having an athletics background, I loved it.
Yeah.
I was just like, no one can stop me, yay! And I scored 4 tries in my first game. And that's probably why I went back, because I scored a lot more then than I do now.
Hello amateurs, welcome to episode number 4 of the Amateur Rugby Podcast. Here to help soothe your Sunday morning hangover with some fun-filled rugby chat about the grassroots of the game. I'm your host Tim, and today I'm in Milan, Italy. And I hope to record this intro out in the city, but it turns out Milan is really noisy. So I've recorded it in my room instead. How are the hangovers today, people? I hope you all enjoyed the after-game fun responsibly yesterday. I'd love to hear any new drinking games you're playing at the moment. One of my favourites, especially when returning from an away trip, was always a rapid-fire game of man, bear, gun. Hope you enjoyed last week's episode with Martin Davey. We got some nice feedback like this from Alex Wicks. Love the episode. Well done, chaps. You should be an actor, Martin, because I had no idea you hated calendar girls. Thanks, Wixie. I love to get feedback on the podcast, good or bad, so please send it to hello@amateurrugbypodcast.com and it'll be gratefully received. Now, my guest this week is England and Saracens star Vicky Fleetwood. I chatted with Vicky on a sunny day in August of 2019. We met at her and her boyfriend Tom's brand new flat, where we sat on the floor as they hadn't had any furniture delivered yet. We had the doors open, so you may hear a plane go over occasionally. I hope they aren't too distracting. We chatted about Vicky's rugby journey, changes to the women's game, and also got into some detail about a horrible recent injury. All I've done since arriving here in Milan is eat an enormous pizza and watch 3 games of rugby. So today I'm heading off to Duomo di Milano, which is the big cathedral in town. So, whilst I'm off being cultural, please give it up for Vicky Fleetwood. Vicky Fleetwood, welcome to the Amateur Rugby Podcast.
Hello.
Let's just describe the scene here for very quickly. I'm in Vicky and Tom's flat, and they've just moved in. So how much furniture have you got here at the moment?
Next to nothing. We've got a rather large beanbag that was Tom's when he had a playroom. So we've brought that to the house. We've got a TV, but that's not set up to even watch yet. But we've got the essentials. We've got a watt bike, no sofa, no bed, but no dining table, but we've got a watt bike.
But you can exercise.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, perfect. So Vicky, you seem to have a pretty good tan on you at the moment. You've just been on holiday?
Yeah, been to Thailand and Marbella, so literally back for 6 days, and that was when we moved in. So yeah, pretty full on, like 3 weeks, I suppose.
Lovely. But you know, you're a rugby player, so you had to get back in it, and this morning doing some testing.
Yep, so I'm coming back from, I actually tore my calf. I was supposed to be going on summer tour with the England girls, and actually didn't manage to get back in time. I was coming back from a shoulder injury where I'd had surgery, and unfortunately tore my calf whilst doing a running session. So yeah, I'm just coming back from that, so just checking that I was able to push on and get fit, ready for the start of the season. Good stuff.
Now, I was looking at your Instagram profile, and on the tagline it says, the one with the pineapple.
Yeah.
That's in reference to your hair, I'm assuming?
Yeah, to do with my hair. Just, I don't know, people just started commenting on it being like a pineapple, I'm not sure, a number of years ago, and it just kind of stuck. Yeah. And I love pineapple, and everyone just, whenever they see pineapple things, they say that it reminds them of me for some reason now, so it's just kind of become my thing. Yeah.
Well, I've got to say, it caused me a few headaches, because I do little cutouts of all my guests for the social media, and trying to cut your hair out during an action rugby shot was one of the more tricky things that I've done.
I never look that great in action shots, so yeah, at least you chose one where I'm not gurning too much.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. So let's just go back to the beginning. How did you first get into rugby?
They just offered it at school, so I'd watched my brother play. He started playing at kind of 11, 12 years old, and I actually didn't know that girls could play rugby. Right. I just thought it was a game for boys, and I didn't know there was an England women's team, anything like that. And when I got into year 10 at school, they offered it as just an after-school club, so I thought I'd give it a go because I'd always done lots of other sports and I'd kind of got quite a lot of aggression, so it was kind of a nice way to kind of take that out, and I just started playing and I absolutely loved it and just never looked back, just wanted to kind of play that more than my other sports, so yeah, and then I've just stuck with it.
And that eventually just took over and all the other sports sort of faded away?
At 17 I kind of had to make that decision because I was playing hockey, I was doing netball, athletics, kind of like every other sport under the sun. And I guess if you want to excel in one, you kind of have to choose that's the one that you're going to kind of put all your efforts into. So yeah, I chose rugby.
Good choice. So what was your first club and what was that like? And like how, not professional, but how well structured was it and how was it run?
So I went down to Leicester Forest, which that was my first club. I turned up after having I played in a touch game at school, and one of the opposition girls that was playing, her dad, who was watching, was the coach of this team, and he just invited me along the following weekend. So my dad took me and went along, and I was like, right, I'll go and meet everyone, kind of see what it's about, because I hadn't done any contact rugby at this point. And he basically, as I turned up, he goes, so we've only got 12 players, do you want to play? So I looked at my dad, I was a bit sceptical, do I, don't I, what's my dad going to think about this? And it was only about a 15-20 minute drive from our house, so my dad was like, you've got a gum shield because you play hockey.
Yeah.
I'd played football, so I had some boots, so he was like, why not, go get your stuff, like I'll take you home and you can come and play. So while they were all kind of getting ready in the changing rooms to go out for the warm-up, I was heading home to go and grab all my stuff.
Wow.
Rocked up and played this game. I literally had no idea what I was doing. I was playing inside centre, I was getting shouted at by the 10. I had no clue. All I knew was that I wanted to get the ball in my hands, run and try and score, and if someone ran at me with the ball, I just had to try and tackle them.
Right.
And literally that was all I knew. Hadn't watched much rugby either, not grown up like in a family that played lots of rugby or anything.
So it wasn't ingrained in you?
No, so I had no idea what was going on.
Did you have a rough idea of like offside, like you kind of had to be behind the ball? Or?
Maybe a little bit, but not really. Like having played a bit of football when I was younger and then hockey, with like the offside rules in those, it's quite hard to then be like, right, you've got to be behind the ball at all times.
Yeah, it doesn't transfer, does it?
No, so that was quite difficult, and I just remember getting shouted at the whole time, but when I got the ball in my hands and I was able to run, having an athletics background, I loved it. I was just like, no one can stop me, yay! And I scored 4 tries in my first game. And that's probably why I went back, because I scored a lot more then than I do now. So.
Yeah, I mean, you say that. You did score a hat-trick for England a couple of years ago, didn't you?
Yeah, but it was off the back of a few mauls, which...
Slightly different.
Yeah, I kind of have to owe that to the other forwards, I suppose.
Very generous. Okay, so that was your start in rugby, and where did you go after that? What club was next?
So then I went to Lichfield. So that club actually folded. Leicester Forest folded, and myself and Emily Scarrett, who also plays for England now, we were both at Leicester Forest, and we had a conversation about kind of what clubs were around that we could maybe go to, and were there any that kind of had a women's team that we could look to then go and play in as well. And the women's team for Lichfield were in the Premiership at the time, so it just made sense. It was, it was a bit further away. It was a 45-minute drive, but we thought we'll go together and like just give it a shot and see where it goes. Like if we wanted to improve our rugby, we needed to be at a better club anyway. So that was kind of our step forward, and quite a few of the other girls that had been at Leicester Forest also went along to Lichfield too.
Right. Okay.
So and then I was at Lichfield for 7 years, and then Sarries, and they're the only teams that I've ever played for. Yeah.
Why the move? Was it just because you wanted to move to London, or the game changed, didn't it? The league got restructured. Is that right?
Yes, I mean
that time.
No, that was only 2 years ago when it became the TP15s, and actually Lichfield did get the boot out of what was the Premiership, which was there was a big hoo-ha over that, and Loughborough managed to get a space instead of Lichfield because of the facilities that they have.
Right.
So that was what happened during the change. But just before the World Cup in 2014, I moved to London. I actually moved in with Tom.
Right.
So moved in with my boyfriend, and had sorted some work out at a gym because I was a personal trainer. So it just went hand in hand.
Yeah.
And that's why I moved to London. And then I had to obviously go to a London club. So looked at kind of the possibilities of what clubs were out there and not too far. The issue is there's no Premiership clubs in this area.
Right.
So whatever club I decide to go to, I'd have to travel. At the time, Quins weren't in the Premiership.
Right.
So it was Aylesford.
Yeah.
So there was Aylesford, or there was Richmond, which the other hooker at the time when I was playing hooker, the other England hooker was at Richmond.
Right.
So that was almost like written off straight away.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, does it, to do that?
So yeah, just ended up going to Sarries, and that's kind of where I've been since, even though I've toed and froed from 7s back to 15s,
Yeah.
but I've stuck at Sarries through that.
Yeah, join that big trophy winning machine. So how closely are the women's and men's sections joined at Sarries? Is there lots of sort of cross-pollination of ideas and training, or?
So for a number of years we've trained at Allianz and played our home games at Allianz, which has been awesome because I love a fast track. I love playing on the 4G.
Not many people do.
I really like it, and you know, you don't get that many burns.
Some burns are fine.
If it's a really hot day, you might get a few, but if it's wet, you just slide.
Yeah.
I just prefer that it's not boggy and it's not slow, because my games are quicker games, so that's why I prefer it. But the training, obviously the men are based at OAs, so they're in St Albans, and we're actually going to be joining up with them this year. So there's a number of us at Saracens Women that are full-time, and we have the RFU contract, so we'll be training there. We've not heard of like any finalisations of when that will start, but that's definitely going to happen at some point, so that we can kind of make use of training maybe with the academy boys, or getting some training from their coaches as well. So there'll be a little bit more kind of crossover than there has been in the past, which is quite exciting for the women's game. Yeah,
for sure. So when I was in Africa a couple of years ago, coaching out there, and I refereed a game. It was just a kind of local game between sort of our group of coaches and one of the local clubs, and there was a woman on each team, and it was a full-on game, and both girls were sort of happy to get involved and do it.
Full contact.
Wow. One girl was Portuguese, the other was American, and like the game just went with no issues whatsoever. And I'm just wondering, like whether that potentially in the future might become. I mean, look, this was a very social game. It wasn't serious at all, but it was all fine, you know. And I'm just wondering whether that might be more commonplace, certainly in social rugby in the future.
I mean, we've done live set piece against some men's teams. So leading up to the World Cups and stuff like that, we've had quite a bit of training against like a boys' academy sides, or we played against the Army Masters and a couple of other like men's teams as well. Went full on in scrums, and then
scrums as well.
Yeah, so and line outs with the mauling.
Yeah.
So that we could kind of practice our positioning and all of that kind of stuff, and it really helped that they were heavier.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I can see that being the case.
So actually, we could use the fact that our body position was much better, and kind of make sure that that's what we were getting right, because it became really important.
Yeah, because
so,
you had to, right?
Yeah,
otherwise
exactly.
It wouldn't work.
So we have done that, but whether you'd play a full game, I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
We've in sevens we did a little bit where it'd be kind of like shoulders on, take them to the ground, but it was, you know,
managed.
Nicely taken to the ground,
Yeah.
so you could, you know, people weren't getting injured, because obviously guys are bigger.
Yeah.
Overall, they move faster, so you know, probably isn't that safe to go like a full-on game with like 15 aside.
You never know though. See, I think 5 years ago, talking about things that you've just spoken about then would have probably been off the radar for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, we've just got through for our fitness testing that as back five, the desirable would be that we're 95 kilos. So I'm not sure I'm going to be anywhere near that anytime. So
No.
Yeah,
No,
but that's definitely like the weight of the men. If we were all that kind of weight, I think we'd be able to compete.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so you've won a few England caps now. How many are you up to?
I've got 69.
69, great total. And have you found that experience? Like, tell me about your first cap.
So my first cap was in Canada, and weirdly, my brother was over there at the time,
Right.
about 4 miles down the road. So I was able to come and watch, which was really cool because obviously team announcements, you know, a week or so maybe before you go. So my mum and dad weren't able to come and watch me get my first cap.
Right.
At the time, I'm pretty sure it wasn't even like streamed or anything like that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where the games come from even when I got capped to now, that most of our games are televised. But yeah, it wasn't even, I'm pretty sure it wasn't even streamed on the internet, so they couldn't watch. I think they probably got a CD afterwards or something so they could watch it back. So yeah, even in sort of the 8 years that I've played internationally, it's changed massively.
Yeah.
We stayed at a college and played on their grounds,
Right.
and that was where we had our international, and that's where I got my first cap. And now obviously we're playing at Twickenham and at the Twickenham Stoop and in big stadiums.
Yeah. There was a few games. Was it last year when you played
Sandy
down?
Park.
Yeah, Exeter. I was just going to say that, where, you know, filled the stadium.
Yeah, I think there was 11,000.
Right.
And that was just the women's game. There wasn't a men's game like prior, which is kind of at Twickenham. That's kind of how the setup normally is.
Yeah.
So we play after the men, so people can kind of hang around after the men's game and kind of get to see a bit of the women's game as well.
But those 11,000 people there were
purely which was really cool. Like, the atmosphere was amazing. It really was. Like, everyone, all the kind of local towns had really got behind getting down to Sandy Park and coming and supporting us. So yeah, that was a really cool game. And actually, I was coming back from another injury. My whole last season was just injury upon injury. It's kind of how it tends to go, really. Once you've had one, you kind of then get a few in a row. But so I managed, that was my first game back, and I managed to get half an hour. I came on at 7, where I'd been playing most of last season, and I hadn't played hooker for 18 months, not even for club, and they put me on, like, moved me to hooker for 15 minutes. So I was like, I still got it. So no, it was actually all right. I felt actually at home. Felt okay.
Good. And like 11,000 people, obviously, in an 11,000 people stadium, it's going to sound a lot better than 11,000 people in Twickenham, I'm sure.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing that they've wanted to do with us playing in the slightly smaller stadiums, is to fill them to get that atmosphere. Yeah. Obviously, it's nice to have the opportunity to play at Twickenham, but like you say, if one side of the pitch, like the stand's empty, you don't get that atmosphere if you've got a line out on that side or plays down on that side. It's not the same as like when there's a whole stadium full,
and in a rugby hotbed, you know, like Exeter.
Exactly, and I know that they're now wanting to have a women's team as well, so they put a bid forward, I think for next season, because these first 3 seasons of the TP15s, they were ring fenced, so no one could go up or down. Whereas going forward, I don't think that will be the case. I know there's question marks over that, and teams will be obviously putting their bids forward, but it'll just depend whether they can obviously have the right facilities, get the right coaches, the right players, whether that they'll be able to have a team in the TP15s.
Yeah. I mean, it's good. There should be competition, shouldn't there? So, you know, moving forward, I think so anyway.
Yeah, and the issue is that there's sort of a top 6 and then the rest.
Right, okay.
So it's just making sure, I think one of the big things for the women's game to work on is to make sure that the distribution of players is kind of a bit more around the whole country, and not just, it used to always be, it was like the London-based teams that would be sort of like top 3, and the others would kind of struggle. Whereas now, especially with the professional era coming through, players are kind of coming from other countries and they want to be playing in the TP15s because it's such a strong competition.
So is there anything worldwide that competes with it? Is it? in terms of other countries, or no?
I don't know what they have in like New Zealand and France, but they're obviously the top teams that we play against. So it must be pretty strong over there. But a lot of players think that week in, week out, we play better rugby.
Right.
So I think that's what's made the England women so strong, and why we did so well in the Six Nations this year.
Yeah.
Was just because week in, week out, like the games are tougher, and actually you'd ache a lot more from like your club games than you would playing against like another international side, just because the standard is so high.
Yeah.
And that's just going to consistently push players on and improve the game.
Yeah, and you want to be a part of that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's I know Quins have had a few signings from Italy, from Ireland, places like that. It's just recently come out on social media.
Yeah.
We've got a few people coming to us as well at Sarries. So
cool.
Yeah, so over the next few weeks I think there'll be more announcements of people going to different clubs.
Right. Good. Now I'm looking across the room here at an England Sevens jersey. Very flash number that is. Tell me about the women's sevens. I actually don't know too much about it. Does it follow the same format as the men's side?
So now they've just announced that there's actually going to be 8 that are on the series. So when I played, there was 5 or even 6 on the World Series,
right.
And now they've gone up to 8, of which I think 6 of them are alongside the men.
Right.
So yeah, that's showing how women's rugby is kind of growing, because when I first started playing sevens, none of them were alongside the men.
Yeah.
And now they're just showing that actually it's a great game to watch, and actually to be part of the men's as well is getting even bigger crowds, and it's really promoting the women's game in a way that like all countries are now playing sevens, and everyone's got teams that actually can really compete. So yeah, sevens is exciting, and I loved being part of it, and actually getting to travel around the world was like awesome as well. It's a quick paced game, and you have to be a certain type of player to do well, and I kind of got moved from prop to wing and kind of all around the show, and didn't kind of get to master it as well as I'd kind of hoped. But I enjoyed my time with sevens, but it's back to 15s now, and that's kind of where I'm staying put, so I can focus on being good at just one of them rather than working on the both.
Fair enough. So, but just reminiscing quickly once more, where would be your favourite spot on the Seven circuit that you played at?
Well, we went to the Gold Coast for the Commonwealth Games.
Right.
So that wasn't on the World Series, but that was pretty cool.
That's a pretty good spot to go and play, I'm sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd probably say there. I'd been to Australia before, but yeah, it was cool to play rugby out there, and there was like a huge crowd, which was really cool as well.
Awesome. So you mentioned briefly there about the growth in the women's game. Now, I don't have the figures to hand, but I do know that it's a very quickly growing sport in terms of numbers. Is that something that you see from the top end, or or how are you aware of that? Or?
Well, the fact that we've been able to set up a club down at Old Colfeians. So over the last 3 years, we've kind of been building that up. We started with under 13s and under 15s, and now we've got under 18s as well, and each week there'd be a new face showing up, and getting messages on Instagram saying like, I've heard that there's girls training down at Old Colfeians, like when does it start, all of this kind of thing, and we're just kind of looking to build on that. But the fact that that's now available is just so different to, like I said, I didn't even know that girls played rugby when I was kind of that age, and they're now kind of providing it at far more schools, and kind of there's just way more competitions that girls can get involved with, and there's far more clubs that we're seeing kind of pop up, giving girls the opportunity to pick up a rugby ball and play. So yeah, like I didn't even know there was kind of touch rugby, like O2 touch didn't exist and things like that. So it's it's massively growing, and there's so many more people taking it up. You see it across social media, and I don't know whether it was the fact that social media wasn't as big, but I didn't know any of that like when I was younger, and they kind of have access to all of that now, and people can aspire to go and play in the Olympics, in the Commonwealth Games, playing rugby, as well as the fact that we have our own World Cup as well.
Yeah, I did a little bit of coaching for the RFU All Schools program in and around this area, sort of Lewisham area, and the girls just loved it. Absolutely loved it. Like probably more so than a lot of the boys that I coached, and it just seemed like it was a massively untapped sort of area at that point. And and I think a lot of the, well, not a lot of them, I know that some of those girls that came to some of those sessions at the local schools have ended up at Old Colfeians, which is great.
Last season I put on a tournament. It was like a tens tournament for all of the local schools, and it was an under-18s one, and there was 150 girls that came.
Wow.
Down at Old Colfeians. It was mad. Just to see like so many girls playing. Some of them it was the first time that they'd actually played a game, so they'd been and trained, but they hadn't been part of a game. And some of them were looking like aspiring to play for England. So that was huge. Like it was diverse, but at the same time, it was really cool to have so many people at the club where we've kind of started up the girls section as well. So, like that many people all in one place, just on a Wednesday afternoon, was pretty cool. Yeah,
amazing. And don't have to name any names or anything like that, but do you see like some potential in some of the girls that you're coaching? That
definitely. Yeah, there's a couple.
Right.
Just the way that some of them like move and kind of glide through a defence, or just the natural handling ability of some of the players who might have played netball,
right? And
they've come across and played rugby, or just people who have played. It's normally people who have done other sports, whether it's athletics, football. They take it up a lot easier.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a handful that myself and Tom have said that is earmarked as that they might go on to do good things if they carry on the way that they are.
Yeah, amazing, good stuff. So, I mean, just talking about women's sport in general, I think there's been a huge push in the UK, certainly that I've seen, in terms of promoting women's sport and making it much more visible. Like, for example, there's always a woman commentator now on rugby on BBC. Another example, just from football, the European Super Cup last night had an entire women referee and touch judges, linesman or lineswoman, linesperson in football. And a slightly more subtle one that I've noticed as well is that people used to call it the Women's World Cup and the World Cup. Now I've heard it several times now recently where people are calling it the Men's World Cup.
Yeah.
Because, it's that absolutely it should be, equal in that respect. I'm just also conscious though that I might still have blind spots with this stuff. So is there anything like do you see those improvements as well? And is there anything more that you think could be done?
I think it's just something that you can't rush, and it kind of has to happen organically.
Yeah.
You can kind of push it more on social. You can kind of push it by trying to get more kids involved so that they want to be involved, whether it's playing or, like, say, officiating or commentating, and actually have that as an idea of something that they want to do when they leave school, or, that was kind of never anything that crossed my mind when I was at school, that I could do that. Like, I maybe thought, I'd like to be a professional sports person, but I never thought that, there's so many other things you can do in sport now, whether it's like S&C for a really cool team, or I don't know, you can be a nutritionist, you could be a psychologist, and there's all of that around sport that I don't think there was as much involvement at the time. And it's cool to see so many women now involved in those roles, and I don't know whether that's on the back of there being more women's sport, or whether it's just becoming more regular to see someone in that role, like a women's referee, or like you say, commentating, and when in other roles in other jobs, would you say that only a guy can do it? Kind of, there'd be something like to do with sexism being put up at you straight away. So, it's cool to see that there's more and more people that are doing that. Yeah,
getting opportunity. And there's another one I saw as well recently, a women's coach for the men's Welsh rugby team. I think I saw this week as well. So, I think you're right. It shouldn't be rushed. It needs to be kind of organic, but just as long as it keeps pushing forward, I think. Yeah,
because I think if they push it too much to start with, there'll probably be a decline before it then goes back up. Yeah. Whereas you just want to see that steady growth. Yeah, there'll be like a fight back against it almost as well, which is not healthy, I don't think. No.
Okay, back to the women's rugby game. A couple of new developments recently, which I think have been terrific as well. The Barbarians game.
Yeah, amazing.
And then, so we'll talk about that in a minute, but also the potential for a Lions team.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? What did you, because you didn't obviously play in the Barbarians game, but have you spoken to some of the girls about that?
Yeah,
and what it was
quite a few of my friends played, and they loved it. So it was very similar to the men's in that they were kind of out on the beers, but training hard as well. Yeah. So they'd go out in the evening, then they'd have 2 sessions the following day or whatever. But it's all about getting to know each other and bonding together, and that's how you build such a team, because the rapport's there. Yeah. So I don't think they performed how they wanted to, but actually they said that it was a lot of fun, and they got to train with the men's Barbarians as well. So they played a bit of touch with them. So they said, it was a bit of a laugh, and definitely something that they, all of them were like, I want to do it again. It would be really cool to be part of again. And the fact that they've kind of ticked that box and been part of the first official Barbars game is really cool. Yeah,
it did look amazing.
I was watching.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I saw it on the TV, and it just looked like exactly the way it should do. It played in exactly the right spirit, the right style of game, and all that kind of stuff. It looked perfect.
Yeah, and with the Lions thing, obviously, the teams that the men play, you wouldn't be able to go to kind of the same places, because like South Africa, Australia probably aren't that strong in the women's game. But it'd be cool to play against the likes of like France, New Zealand. Teams like that would really push a Lions team. So
maybe a combined Canada-USA team or something like that.
Something like that would be pretty
twist
cool.
on it, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So there'd be things that would have to be slightly different, but it would be really cool to say that you're part of that.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. But first, Vicky, you've got to get back fit and playing again. So
I do.
Before we started recording, you told me a little bit about your shoulder injury. Like to just tell everybody a little bit about that, because it sounded horrific.
Yeah, so the start of April, so it was the first game back with club after Six Nations. My dad actually came to watch because I'd gone and stayed with him, and we were playing against Loughborough. So I grew up about half an hour away from there. Right. So I was like, tight, and we're going to see my dad. Dad can come and watch me play. And unfortunately, I ended up in A&E, taken off in an ambulance. Dad had to come along to the hospital and take me home. But I managed to get a grade 6 AC separation. So my collarbone tore through my deltoid and my trap, and was sticking right out because I'd snapped all of the ligaments. So I had to have surgery to have it kind of pinned back down.
What was the pain level like?
It was probably the worst injury I've ever had.
Right. Okay.
I just couldn't get comfortable. Felt like I was being stabbed in the shoulder.
Yeah.
Which I was. Yeah. Being stabbed by my own bone, which was lovely. And I remember the pain was bad, but I was just getting so frustrated and ended up crying because I couldn't do stuff.
Yeah.
So I was sitting there and I wanted to just get up to go and get a drink or go to the toilet, and just trying to push up with just my one arm would put so much pressure through it that I'd be like, I can't do it. and then something would switch off and not let me do it, and I'd have to hold my breath and really push and go I will stand up, and I just I just couldn't sleep because I had to sleep sitting up.
How long for?
for the first kind of 4 days.
Oh my God.
So I stayed at my dad's.
So what, were you like propped with pillows and
Yeah,
stuff?
so I stayed at my dad's and I slept on the sofa and had pillows propping me up.
Oh God.
And then, like, you can't cut your food
Yeah.
because I was in a sling. So yeah, 3.5 weeks in a sling was not ideal.
No.
And I had to stay in it when I was sleeping as well. So when I did finally manage to be able to turn onto my other side, because before, like, just the way that it would drop forward was too painful when it was so swollen.
Right.
But after a few days, when I was able to turn onto my side, I still was in a sling. And then if I wanted to get out of the bed, it was like really difficult because I was on my right hand side.
Yeah.
I had to push over and try and get out
Without
without
crushing your shoulder.
Yeah, so it was hard work, and I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. I never knew, like, touch wood, like, it's been the only time I've ever kind of hurt my arm or been in a sling, and it was really tough. So for everyone who's kind of been through that, I feel you. I feel your pain.
But there was a silver lining, you mentioned.
Yeah, I actually managed to go on one of my best friend's hen do's to Portugal. So, yeah, you know, when you're injured and you have to kind of look at all the positive things that you can try and clutch at, that was one of the kind of good things that I was able to do, because it was the same weekend as the Premiership final, so I would have been playing.
You'd have missed that.
Yeah, so I wouldn't have gone to Portugal for 4 days, so it was quite nice that I managed to go and do that.
There's always something, isn't there? There's always something. So, but you're back up to full strength now?
Yeah,
pretty much?
I've got to do my return to contact stuff, because I still haven't done that from my shoulder and my calf perspective. So I've got to start building that up. We've still got a good few weeks before the season starts for us, because of summer tour. So I've got a good few weeks to build that up and get myself ready to play. So I should be fighting fit come the first game of the season.
Yeah, awesome. So Vicky is probably one of the most dedicated athletes that I've ever come across. So I'm interested. What are your PBs on squat and bench?
Why are guys always interested in that? Like,
it's actually not a question that I normally
honestly, literally, like, guys are always like, oh, what do you squat? What do you bench? Like, that is not normally something that girls would ever ask each other, I swear. But I think squats 140. My bench, my PB, my 1 rep max is 90. And what was the other thing?
Oh, I only asked 2. But deadlift, if you got a deadlift?
I think my deadlift's 160, but
wow.
I haven't deadlifted for quite a while, so something that I need to kind of get back into my program.
Yeah.
Along with, I love doing cleans.
Right.
They just make me feel like pretty powerful. I get kind of my speed from doing that kind of thing.
Just describe what a clean is for people who might not know.
So it's one of the weightlifting exercises.
Olympic exercise, right?
Yeah. And from the floor, it's just, I don't know how to describe it. It's like a power exercise, so you have to be really quick. You have to pull the bar up as quick as you can, and then you drop underneath it and catch it. You bring your elbows underneath and catch it like on your shoulders.
Right.
And you want to be in like a low squat when you catch it. So you have to be quite flexible, which I'm not.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's an exercise that I really like doing, and I haven't been able to lift very heavy since doing my shoulder, because I've got a pin in it, and it obviously lands on it.
Yes.
So
it must.
Yeah. So I've not gone massively heavy with my cleans, and it's something that I want to get back into my training because I enjoy it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Like I say, it's a good dynamic full body exercise.
Yeah.
That requires some like kind of coordination and stuff
It does, but I just feel far more explosive when I've kind of had them like in my program. So I find that then shows on the pitch.
Yeah.
So it's something that I like to have in my S&C program.
Yeah, absolutely. So your Instagram game is pretty strong.
It's not bad.
So yeah, if you want to get any like gym inspiration, then Vicky's often, photos in the gym on her Instagram.
Yeah, probably not as regularly as I should, but and definitely not as regularly as I am in the gym. But yeah, like if I do something maybe that's either a little bit different, or I think people would kind of enjoy seeing or enjoy maybe giving a go, I try and put little challenges up, or something that I've done, like, yeah, give it a go, like see how you find it, or something I might have found particularly hard, I might then post about that or something. So keep your eyes peeled if you want to challenge me to anything.
Yeah, and we were talking about this earlier. You said you'd help people out with a bit of S&C advice if they got in touch.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I'm always open to people kind of messaging me on Instagram. I'll reply to ones that aren't stupid. If people are being serious about something, then always happy to kind of help out, because I've done sports science and I've got a personal training qualification, and I do work at a gym currently alongside playing, so it's something that I am like quite heavily involved with, and I enjoy being in the gym and kind of offering my advice as well.
Yeah, awesome. Right, okay, it's time for the law section of the podcast. Vicky, as I say, I don't think anybody fully understands all the laws, so it's not...
definitely don't.
Where would you rate yourself out of 10?
I'm going to put that out there right now. I'm quite low down. Maybe a 5.
Okay, well, with that in mind, it's time to find out, Vicky Fleetwood, are you a rugger law bore?
Sir, are you sure that's correct?
Your question is, and it's to do with your specialist position of hooker.
Oh God,
I've just said
I haven't played that for a couple of years. So.
One-time specialist position of hooker. Okay, so you as the hooker thrown the ball in.
Yeah.
Okay, a player with his foot on the 5 metre line leans forward towards the hooker and catches the ball. Is it A, play on, or B, an option of line out or scrum to the non-throwing team?
B.
That is correct.
Yeah, woo, go me.
Vicky Fleetwood, you are a rugger law bore.
I'm definitely not. I just know that because I've seen it happen.
Right.
I don't think I've ever not thrown it 5 though. I've definitely seen another team try and go to the front, and their props turn around and they've lent and caught it. They haven't let it go 5.
Yeah. So that's the law. Exactly how you described it there. The ball must travel 5 metres before a player plays it, and it must not hit the floor either. You're not allowed to roll it on the floor, for example.
I didn't know that was actually a law. What about kicking it in? Could you kick it in?
I don't think so. I think you have to throw it.
Is that stated anywhere?
Head it.
Is that stated?
I think
anywhere?
it does say throw.
Okay.
I think it does literally say throw. I brought this one up because, again, this came up in a game, the Ireland-Italy game at the weekend, and the commentators tried to make a case that because the player had his foot on the 5 metre line, even though he took it probably 3.5 metres.
No, the ball has to go 5
The ball
meters.
has to travel 5. That's correct. Vicky, you'll be pleased to know you're the first person to get your question right.
I mean, you gave me an easy one.
Wow, I don't know. International...
Was that because I said I was a 5 out of 10? And I didn't know many.
You know, people on the TV didn't know it, so,
They need to get the law book out, don't they?
They really do. Okay, now then, on to the last quickfire questions. These are all about stash kit. And I've never met a rugby player that doesn't like kit and stash. So I was wondering, what is your favourite bit of stash that you've ever received? It can be a plain shirt, a tracksuit, like a beanie, anything.
So, I don't wear rugby stash often. Maybe when I'm doing a bit of coaching, but other than that, I don't really like to wear it.
Yeah, no, you don't. Not
I'm
casually,
kind of,
but,
So like, I'm more about wearing like gym gear. But we got at the Commonwealth Games, we got a tracksuit, and it's so comfy that I wear it instead. I wear it around the house instead of wearing a dressing gown. So like over my pajamas, and my boyfriend always like takes the mickey out of me for it. So probably that.
The comfy pajamas.
Yeah.
The comfy tracksuit. Okay, good. Okay, that's new. Okay, so this next question is about your favourite kit of all time. So it's a playing kit.
That I've played in.
No, it can be any team from any era. But it could be one that you've played in as well.
Well, because my favourite one that I've played in was a sevens one, and
that one that I'm looking at.
No, not that one.
Okay.
So it was the away version of last season's, and it was grey, and it had neon yellow, and I had neon yellow boots, and I I also painted my nails neon yellow, so everything matched.
Amazing.
And obviously, as a girl, I'm quite into making everything match.
Yeah.
So that was probably my favourite kit to play in, and
Right.
like it's quite slimming as well. It was like blacky grey
Yeah.
kind of colour. So yeah, that was probably my favourite kit I've played in. Favourite kit? I don't know. I quite like the sevens kits just because they're a bit wacky.
Yeah. They're a bit out there, aren't they?
Yeah. The Japanese one's cool.
Right.
With like the flowers going up it.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go with that one.
Yeah.
And the last stash question, because I love stash. Maybe the Japanese one's the answer to this, but out of the current kits that are out there at the moment, is there one that sort of stands out that you think you've seen recently that, you know, is top notch?
I'm just not really that into stash. Maybe it'll be the Saris new Saris kit.
Yeah. Have you seen it yet? Or
no,
not?
the kit launch is on Monday.
Okay.
So maybe that. I don't know.
Well, by the time this podcast is out, you will know, so people can go and look it up. But that being done, is there anything else you want to fancy talking about, or?
Not really.
Not really.
No.
Okay. Brilliant. Well, listen, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me. Well,
good luck.
Come round to my house.
Yeah. And good luck getting properly fit and
Thank you.
for this season.
Thanks.
I'm now back from the Duomo di Milano, which is indeed a very big cathedral. What was more interesting though is that it's currently Fashion Week here in Milan. I'm not sure I really fit it in, to be honest. So, thanks very much again to Vicky. Really enjoyed our chat and I hope you did too. Since our conversation, there's been further progress for females in our sport. Firstly, Alana Gattinger has been named as the team manager for the Canadian team at the Rugby World Cup, the first time a female has fulfilled this role. Secondly, female players will be paid to play club rugby for the first time in the UK. Hopefully this will be sustainable and career in sport will be available to more people going forward. Lastly, World Rugby have decided to drop women's from the start of Women's World Cup. In the future, both versions of the World Cup will be purely called the World Cup. I'm not sure if this is the best solution. It could be potentially confusing, but I applaud the intent. I think it would have been clearer to add men's to the start of the World Cup for males, to be honest. Now, I have a confession to make. I wonder if any of you rugger law bores noticed my mistake in this week's question. The answer should have been that when a line-out doesn't go 5 metres, the game should restart with a free kick on the 15-metre line. Thanks to Phil Waters for alerting me to my error. It just goes to show that even with the law book at hand and time to research the question, it's still possible to get the laws wrong. If you enjoyed this podcast, you could like, comment, share and subscribe. What I'd really like is if you mention it to someone in person next time you're down your local rugby club. I'll be back with you next week when my guest will be Rod Turner, who promised to tell some dodgy stories from his journey around all the clubs in London. So, until then, get out and play.